Well, good deal. How's it going, Ben? How are you today?
Things are well. Things are well. Yeah, the weather is, a bit cloudy, and I'm okay if it delivers rain,
Yep.
because I know we need it, and it feels like fall. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled because we don't typically have seasons, right? So if this is our fall for the next 2 weeks, I'm happy with it. I'll take it.
Yep. Yep. For sure. Yeah, it's been really dry around here, and but then the last few days it's opened up, and I'm definitely open to that because my yard is it's struggling, and really the big thing is I made the mistake a couple years ago of going crushed granite on the side yard and a lot of crushed granite out in the back, and when
Okay.
the weeds start coming in there, when it's rained some, I can pull those weeds really easily. But
Good.
when it's dry, it's a futile effort. So it's looking kind of raggedy on some of my pathways. So I got to get back there and get going. So, well, I mean, I do a little intro, so of course people know a little bit about you. You've obviously been on the show before. You're a good friend from Keller Williams DPR. So, but you're an active agent. I mean, I don't know of another agent actually that shows up to more meetings and calls, and your name gets thrown around the office more. So you are one active dudes. But I know during your episode that we talked about, and if you haven't heard Ben's story, go back and hear his actual interview, because we won't rehash everything about your history. But so tell me just like about your day-to-day business. I mean, I've got, let's see, this is going to be my best month ever. September will be my best closing month ever, just kind of through a series of happenings. I'm going to have 3 closings this
Many.
September. I don't have a ton in the pipeline after that, but I'm going to rejoice in 3 closings in September. So what does your volume look like? What is your day to day? How are you? I know you have someone helping you out in the office. Like
Mhm.
how is your routine and your day looking like these days?
Yeah, it's funny. I People would be shocked to know that my routine changes really daily. That there's not as much structure to it as you would think. For a rainmaker, a mega producer who's been at it for over 3 decades, um, that's something that I'm still working on. There's an opportunity to improve for me, um, but the race isn't over for me. And you had mentioned the trainings, and for me, I think that's the reason why I'm still here at this point, because I'm a perpetual learner. And that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I differ with that,
Yep.
because I think that you can. And so I just show up, and I think showing up is more than, I'd say it's more than 70 or 80%. Just show up with a willingness to keep an open mind. And so that's me every day. Um, and my day to day looks like I have to work on. I have 4 pillars to my business, and it's my clients that have trusted me forever. And then I've got a farm area. I'm old school in that I market to my neighborhood, which is in far north Dallas. Um, a couple of neighborhoods here, and one in a more luxury area, and I market to those properties. And then I do an experience, a giveaway, or a client appreciation every 60 days. And I think that's what also separates me from most other agents, is because I have a very large marketing budget. And those experiences and giveaways, typically they're anywhere from 500 to 1,000. But I'm working on my annual jazz event, which right now is scheduled for October 18th.
Okay.
And on that event, we'll have roughly between 100 and 150, folks come out. And finally, it's agent to agent referrals from
Yeah.
around the world. And those 4 things I work on each and every day, and that keeps me busy, and that's the bulk of the business. And I'm fortunate that through 20, what is this, September
24.
4th?
Yep. Yep.
And this
4th,
is my
September
birthday
4th.
month, so don't forget, September
Okay.
is my birthday month. I'm a Libra. But between what I've closed and I think my September pendings, I will have already outpaced 2023. So I'm excited about that. And yet, even with that, for my ultimate goal, it looks like I'm trending. I'm probably trending about $7 million behind. Um, which is a bit disappointing, and yet I'm still moving in the right direction. So
Yeah.
I'll applaud that. So
I'm pretty new to the office. Well, I want to get, but let me touch on this real quick. Your jazz event. So, what do you have like a facility, or you rent out a restaurant or something, and you bring jazz music in? What does that look like? That's
so,
really cool.
yeah, yeah. We've been checking different venues currently, and we hosted the last one at Glen Eagles, and it looks like they're probably giving us the best deal. So it's just for mom and dad. I want a neat experience for them to have a date night. For someone who's been married for, again, over 3 decades. I know sometimes that lacks, because if you have kids or not, it's like you invest time and energy there, and then sometimes you almost forget your mate, right? I wanted to create a unique experience for them to come out, enjoy amazing music, great food and drinks, and it's all part of my company experience, so
Cool.
that we stay connected. Because again, I think so many agents, we talk about absentee owners and absentee purchasers and buyers in this marketplace, because the majority of agents just don't stay connected. They
Yeah.
don't keep up,
Yeah,
right?
you just want to stay in front of people, and you just find
Absolutely.
ways of it.
Right.
Where do you find your musicians? I sang for a while at St. Andrew Methodist Church, and several
Right.
of those guys they're the full-time pros on staff. They are from North Texas, big jazz guys. They play around town. So if you're ever hurting for jazz musicians, I can help you out on that.
That's good to
On
know.
that front. Yeah, I know
That's
some really, really legitimate musicians that blow me away, because it's
Yeah.
so funny. One of my guys that I follow, Daniel, you see him at church and he's doing okay, and just playing the chords. This guy kind of seems like he knows what he's doing. Well, then you see him playing out, and he just blows people away. And he goes on tour. He's been in Europe with a certain band. I mean, he's a great piano player, jazz piano player. But then you see him in the element of church, and I always have that conversation with him, because he'll come back from tour. He'll be touring over in Europe or wherever, and they're not huge venues, but large venues. People are excited to see this group. Dave Letary is the guitar player. He was nominated for a Grammy last year, and so he plays for him. Well, then he'll come back and he takes just a normal gig at a bar, and he's like 30 people there, and half of them aren't paying attention. And then he go play church on Sunday morning, and it's just playing a few chords. So it's just such a weird experience for the full-time professional musician. But all that to be said is he's great, and there's a lot of really solid jazz musicians in town. So I would love to come check that out.
Yeah, the problem we have here is Dallas isn't as big a jazz scene as people would think that it is. And so much as, I'd say, underground. And like your buddy there, if he plays at certain venues, then if I know about it, I'm gonna promote it. And I've been pretty influential in helping to bring in bigger crowds that just appreciate live music and jazz music, in particular. I'm more of a smooth or contemporary as opposed to traditional, but that's okay. I appreciate, all genres of music, but we just don't have, we used to have 2 or 3 really nice venues. You knew you could go to any night of the week. Right. And I think because that community is so tight, I know 2 or 3 or 4 very influential guys that kind of keep me, in tune with, where they're playing.
On. Yeah.
And Vandale Andrews is he's one of the local. I mean, that guy is touring all over, and that's who I've got lined up. And again,
nice.
It cost me a pretty penny, but for me, it's all about the experience. And I know that money will come back to me, because when if you don't focus on that, which would intimidate a lot of people, because the budget is about a third of what most agents make in the country.
Right.
But again, the write-off, I need them. So
let me ask you about that. So, 'cause I'm pretty new to real estate, residential real estate. I'm new to the office. I know we have about 600 agents at the DPR. So you don't have to give me exact numbers, but give me a sort of a range of, what are we talking about? The top agents at DPR, which is one of the biggest Keller Williams offices in Dallas. Like, let's say the top 5 or 10 are gross GCI. Are these people $1 million plus GCI? Are they 5 million? Like, where are they? Like, what is a super successful agent look like in Dallas?
Yeah. Again, and I'd say it not just Dallas, but I think DPR stats will rival just any other company here, regardless of whether it's EXP or AB Holiday or Remax or whoever. But in this office alone, I'd say we've got 8 to 10 agents who all make over $1 million. And so I say that those numbers go anywhere from $1 million to $3 million, right? And they're all teams and groups, and small groups. It hasn't been done yet, and it's one of my goals, and I guess I shouldn't be ashamed to put it out there publicly. I want to be the first individual at Dallas Preston Road to be a MREA, a Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It's never
awesome.
been done. Now, Brad Johnson is the closest to do it, but Brad, like Tavis, I'd say their whole business mantra is different because they create their own inventory, right? Yeah. And Brad outpaces, Tavis. And so, it's hard to compete with that because my business is all about buyers and sellers, right? Brad alone, he'll probably do 40 units, which will be his flips. So I hope Brad does it, but even if he does it, Brad ultimately is not an individual. He's got a whole army of people that work with him. The average agent in the country makes between $50,000 and $60,000. And so when you see even just the top 5% here at Dallas Preston Road, and those are agents that gross probably between 300 to 700 is the range where most of us will fall. I get those numbers to me are, impressive. And for 2025, I'd like to see Ben Baker with the MREA behind his name so that that it's been done.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Not by an individual who doesn't have an army. I don't have buyers.
You got a small team.
I have Christina, who's my
Christina. That's right.
That's it. And she's not licensed at all. At all.
That'd be amazing. And we don't have the luck. I've gotten onto a kick lately, and we'll get into our market update here in a second. I got into a kick recently about watching the millionaire listing. Millionaire LA, $1 million listing LA. I love $1 million listing New York. I roundabout know a guy. I went to college with him there at Pepperdine. He was in the fraternity. He was a year or two younger than me, but he's one of these guys. I see him all the time and he's been on TV a few times, but he lists in this place called Crystal Cove in Southern California, regularly listing things $15, $20, $25 million. And what's crazy is, and maybe you think that it might go this way, but in New York and in LA, it's way more common to represent both sides. And it's nuts because they're on these huge, huge deals. And somehow those people, I don't know if they're just price sensitivity is not as much. And so they just want to make sure they're getting a fair deal. But it seemed like these people who know that crowd, they can represent both sides. They know how to sell that property, but they also have the buyers in that world. And so I don't know if that's super common. I know it's not as common around here to represent both sides, but now that the commission structures are seemingly changing a little bit, although now that it's settled in for a couple of weeks, it doesn't seem that different. It's just a few different pieces of paperwork and kind of some different conversations with your buyers and sellers. But, it seems like the structure is maybe still there with somewhat lower commissions. So it might be accomplishing what they want. But do you see a time when, like for instance, let's say you're you're down in a Kingsgate or Willow Bend or something like that. We're talking $2 to $5 million houses regularly where you would represent both sides. Would you feel comfortable doing that?
I'm the one who would. You're right. It's unusual here in this area. Me personally, roughly about 10% of my sales are both sides. So far, year to date, I've only done one, and I think that was back in March or April. But we are expecting with this, Sitzer Burnett, NAR thing, we're expecting those numbers to increase significantly. I'm hearing anywhere from 20 to 25%. Buyers are coming directly to you or me because of either their perceived thought that they're going to save some money. In some cases they might, but in other cases, if so, it might only be a slight amount, because I think that if you're going to have to reach across the table and service an unrepresented buyer, you and I both know there's added work there and pressure, and I'm not doing that for free at all. So, right.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because you are put in that position of being a fiduciary, and you're supposed to represent the financial best interest of who you're representing. So if that's the seller or the buyer, and I'm not super strong on my opinions with sellers or buyers, but I definitely put it out there of, hey, here's your options, and you can present whatever information you want to. You can position things well, and you can sway people of, okay, this is a really good deal, you should take it, or hey, we should list here. I think this is what the market is saying. I mean, they were leaning on you to be an expert. And so it's almost counterintuitive to back up and say, hey, I'll facilitate this transaction, but I can't really, knowing that I have to do the other side, I can't be too strong on my opinion. I need you to make a lot of these decisions on your own, which I'm sure there's always that balance. You want to present information, but say at the end of the day, this is your decision. I want to do the best I can to educate you, but I can't make you go one way or the other and making that super obvious. I think you would just have to go way above and beyond to educate both sides to say, look, this is on you. I'll do my part. If you want me to find out information, I will, but like this ultimately is on you. So it would be a dance, but if you want to get to the million GCI, I could see it. Maybe this is the year to do it, because if you can get on both sides of a few of these luxury deals and get your gross up immediately, that's pretty great, so maybe that's the way you're going to do it.
Indeed. Well, and I think you touched on the point. It's having different conversations that we haven't had in the past. And I feel like that's right now my biggest, not even hurdle or adjustment to the business, or those conversations. Now, I'm fortunate. I've never had a seller complain about me wanting to be on both sides of the transactions, because during the listing, I'm already talking about that. I'm laying the groundwork, because ultimately I only want to be the only agent involved in it, because I tell folks my shoulders are broad enough to handle this, right? And if something goes wrong, then it's on me. Yeah. And I like that pressure, right? Yeah. I want that pressure. You want me on that wall. Right.
Yeah. That confidence. Yeah. Right. That confidence, I'm sure, comes across. Plus it's like, look, you want to open up the idea of like, plus you've been in the market a long time, people that are looking. It's like, look, if I bring a buyer to the table, are you interested in, are you okay with me representing that? I mean, there's ways around it. Absolutely. But yeah, that's, I've always been curious on volume and what represents a big seller there. I'm excited about getting 3 closings in a month, so they'll help me creep up a little bit on their, maybe on the monthly email, I'll creep up to the bottom corner of something. So
you'll be in Club 20, the next Club 20, which was just last week.
I missed that. Yes. I had to take my car in, and I looked back, I was like, dang it. I had it marked on my calendar, and it ended up, I was sitting in a stupid car shop for that. And so, last week was a weird week for me. I had, we've had a lot of, I don't know if we've talked to you at all about, I've got this one closing that has to do with Choctaw, the Choctaw Nation, and it's finally closing today. They've signed off, it's closing, but it's been this weird back and forth. But I sold a property over in Keller, and then they made an offer on a house that they're going to buy over in Bedford. So last week was a really busy week. And then, let's see, it was, I think, Thursday night, my wife around 7:45 said, man, my stomach doesn't feel right. And then it moved to her back. And I was like, I think we should maybe go to the ER. Long story, she was there overnight. She had a kidney stone. And it was excruciating. And the Plano Presby Hospital was just super full. She started having pain around 7:45. She didn't get pain meds till about 2:30 and in the morning. And I have a friend that's a surgeon over there, and I was texting him. He was kind of giving me some advice and asking this and asking that. And he was off duty. He was thinking about coming in just to help her out, but it ended up being a really large kidney stone. Stayed overnight. We're there all day, most of the day Friday. And then we went out of town Saturday. So it's been kind of a hectic few days, but she's doing better now. She's not feeling 100%, but you get to go. I worked in the healthcare world for 10 years, and I almost all my people came from Plano Presby. So it was different being on the other side of it and getting to experience all that over there. So, well, why don't we talk about a little bit of a market update? So I looked up our statistics. Of course, right now, 30-year mortgage costing about 7%, give or take, depending on who you're talking to. And by the way, you know this better than anybody out there. If you're not shopping your rate whenever you're looking for a house, or if you have clients looking for a house, if you're not helping them shop their rate, you're missing out on helping them save a lot of money, because there's a lot of programs out there that are great, but those mortgage guys, they make money too, and so don't hesitate to help people shop. I kind of a roundabout way, I wouldn't do this again, but a roundabout way, we helped a guy close, and he got the two guys fighting with each other, and they both bowed up a little bit. And I mean, he ended up saving about $1,000 a month, and I think he ended up saving around 20,000 coming to closing. It was insane how much room there was there on this loan. But right now, overall, you're probably paying around 7%. I looked at average days on market. Entire MLS is 52. Collin County is 49. So it's pretty tight across the board. Denton's looking like 44. I talked about this last week, Ben, but we hit a 10-year high on months of supply. So looking back 10 years, we're at 4.7 months for the MLS. Back in 19, it was the peak. In the last 10 years, it was 4.4. So we have rapidly jumped. Let's see, it was just a few. January, we were at 3.2. Now we're at 4.7. And so that is for sure creeping up. We have not quite hit a 10-year high on overall homes for sale, but we are. I think that probably will happen. In 19, there were 44,000 homes for sale in the MLS, and right now we have 42.5, and that number is tracking with the months of supply. So more and more homes on the market, taking a little bit longer to sell. But let's talk a little bit about that article that I sent you. The good news is that home prices, home values in the United States outpaced inflation.
That's right.
Over the last month or so. Dallas did not particularly. We were just below inflation. We were a 2.4% increase, but the country was over 5. So tell me about that. What does that mean for you? I mean, that seems like a good sign in general. I know a lot of the conversations you have are around value and increasing value over time.
Indeed. I think it is good news, and yet it's still troubling for me in that we're outpacing the inflation, and yet we're seeing the total number of listings now for 2024 shatter records that we haven't seen. I think last year in 2023, and I think I'm speaking nationally, we had 19, I believe, and if my memory serves me correct, and again, I'm mature, so it may not, but I think we had 1 month all of last year where we had over 19,000 new listings hit the marketplace. So for a year to date, I think we've already had 3 or 4, right? So the inventory is increasing at a massive rate, which again is adding to the days on the market, which again is still so interesting, because when you're doing your research, you find that Texas, almost more than anywhere else in the nation, we're at a critical stage of an undersupply of new homes, especially in urban areas. And so you think, well, wait a minute, we've got more listings coming on the market. We've got homes now sitting on the market. And the public believes that it's an alarming amount of time. As an industry wide, we know that 50 to 60 days sitting on the market isn't that unusual at all, right? Especially for, mature agents like myself who go back and remember the days when, if you sold a home in 6 or 7 months, we bragged on that, right? We published it and we put it out in the marketplace. Today, that doesn't exist, because I think COVID and 21 and 22 spoiled us to where we were selling homes in days or in sometimes hours if we even put it on the market. So that concerns me. I know you had asked me a question, and again, I've already forgotten what the question was.
Well, no, I was just on the education part. I know a lot of people just ask about the overall increase. I mean, and in general, whenever I'm telling people about increase in value, I know over the average of 20 years, it's about 5% a year in Dallas. And so when you're talking about, for instance, a good where this comes in for me on a conversation, educating a buyer or a seller, but typically a buyer, is on their offer price. And,
Mhm.
you know, they're trying to sit there and argue over, let's say 15 grand. Well, I want to offer this. I want to offer that. But our average sales price around here is 440. But let's just, for easy math, let's use $500,000.
Yes.
And so if you're at 5% annual increase in value, that's $25,000 next year.
Mhm.
Statistically, your house is going to be worth roughly $25,000 more. Now, if you turned around and sold it, you have cost to sell and all that stuff. So you're probably another 2 or 3 years to recapture your all of that. But if you're sitting there losing sleep over, you know, well, he won't come down this, he won't come down another 10. It's like, look, do you like this house? Is this something you really want? Are you willing to walk? And plus, in 6 months, you're going to regain the value that you feel like you're quote unquote losing right now, just
That's
because our market is what it is. Now, there's no guarantee. It could go down, all that stuff.
right.
But historically, if you just hold out for 6 months or a year or two, you're going to get that money back, and you're going to have a house you really, really like. And
Absolutely.
so I think sometimes people lose sight in the short term of trying to win these little battles. And it means a lot when it's like, look, the big picture is you're going to get this back. And we're still a good market.
That's right.
And, you know, I don't know if you've heard that same thing, but I think historically we're around 5%. And of course, there's pockets that way outpace that, you know, and
Yeah.
I think there's areas that'll up near Sherman and all that stuff. I think you're probably going to do that. You know,
Right.
there's the newer, the Prospers and the newer areas there. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's where my education comes in, where these values. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of news about the lack of supply, and it's hard to decipher that because, you know, all of a sudden it's almost like the builders have an oversupply because they're throwing all these incentives at people and they're trying to, you know, $30,000 off and we'll buy your points down 2 points. And it's all this stuff. So it's hard to know, okay, why are they doing this? And where do I sit on that? But it's a moving target for that, but that's why I like tracking it. You know, at least you can speak in an educated way to buyers and sellers, you know.
Right. And Ashton, what I hear is that I hear a professional at work, and that's what I see in you, because you're doing your homework, you're educating your consumer, right?
Yeah.
I've said for my entire real estate career, and I'm sure I got it from somewhere, that especially if I'm in the throes of negotiating, right, or working with that buyer, I tell them all day that I'm okay at letting Ashton Hines win a skirmish as long as we win the war. Right. That's what's important. And, you know, illustrating to them how minute that $10,000 gap is, right? In most cases, we're talking about a lunch or a dinner at Chili's is what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Your mortgage. Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So if you think of it that way, then you'll understand that should not keep you from a home that checks boxes, right?
Yeah.
That fills your needs and your wants, right? And the school or the distance to work or whatever it is, right? Your family's lifestyle. Because I think today, and this has been a huge change in the marketplace, it's not just about buying a 3-bedroom home or a 4-bedroom home. It's now buying a property that matches your lifestyle, right? Or the lifestyle that you want, which could get folks into trouble. But I think that's where we need to keep our focus. Like I said, anybody can sell just a 4-bedroom home, but it's matching their wants and their needs and their desires and their family lifestyle that's important for us that are out here in the field doing it all day, every day. So
yeah.
And I just don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, for me, like I can't tell you, you know, when I was early married, I did not grow up in a family that negotiated. It just always felt, every time you know, the thought of buying a car, I just thought I was getting taken advantage of. And I remember being young married, and we went to St. Martin, and my wife grew up going down there. Her parents had a timeshare. And she loved going down to the market. She loved going to Canal Street in New York, trying to bargain for a bag or whatever. And in St. Martin, trying to bargain for a necklace. And I'm thinking, man, this person, you're trying to rip this guy off of an extra $3 of a necklace that he's trying to sell you. It was like, what's the point? Just pay him. And she enjoyed the game. And what's funny is the more I'm in this business, the more I enjoy that game. And it's happened the last couple of times that we've negotiated. I've had a seller and a buyer both basically say, like, I don't really Like, I'm fine with either of these numbers. You know, whatever you think. And I'll go, and on one of on the listing, you know, I negotiated and we came out about $15,000 ahead. And on the buy, I threw out a number. It was like, hey, they want to do this, thinking like, look, they're comfortable going higher than this. I know they are. We're not going to lose the house. They're not going to walk away. But they're like, yeah, that's a good offer. We'll go for it. 15 grand. And it's like, I just feel good about that. I feel like I'm bringing value to the table to say, look, I'll have these conversations you're not willing to have. You know, I'm not going to do it recklessly. I'm not going to let my ego get in the way. But it's like, look, if you don't care, like, let's just try. Why, you know, why not? And I've found that that's one way I can bring value. And I would never have done that ever. I would never have done that 10 years ago. I mean, I'm scared to ask for, you know, $500 off at Chevrolet. You know, it's like, man, I don't know. They work pretty hard around here. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just such a weird mentality.
Well, I think that's why everyone wants to do this, right? Because we make it look easy, and then when they get in this business, again, 90% of new hires don't make it, and some are because of that. They don't like confrontation.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm okay with professional confrontation, right? We're in the throes of negotiating, and I'm expecting an offer today on a high-rise condo that I've got, and I'm okay with that back and forth. Now, if it ever gets personal, and you know what, then I won't communicate with you over the phone, maybe via text or email. But I don't like arguing with my wife, and I definitely don't like arguing with you, some agent that I don't even know well, right? And ultimately, we're just trying to get to that win-win for both of our clients. And like you, I don't mind pushing. I just did last, 2 or 3 weeks ago on a property in Carrollton, same thing. I had a client that's like, well, Ben, I'm happy with this. I'm like, fantastic. I said, but you're also not going to be mad at me if we can get an additional $5,000, right? And they're like, oh, God, no, right? And so, within an hour, I came back and there was an additional $5,000. And they're like, fantastic, whoop, whoop, right? Yeah. And I'm like, we'll use that money one way or another.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So,
I when I was a young agent, and I think it was Tony Robbins, I can't remember. He was on the Theo Vaughn podcast. He said it really well. But basically, anger and anxiety are just built. They're based in fear, and the fear of something. And for me, it was always the fear of feeling like I was being taken advantage of as an agent or as a person. And so my early on, how I negotiated was to get mad and to push and to try to bully somehow, and just never really works. And you realize the more confident you get, the more you know, the more you come across like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. When they say stuff, I'm not really arguing, but let's say a fact or two of, hey, you should take this offer because of X, Y, and Z. And you can say, well, actually, the days on market in that neighborhood are this. We're confident we could go back on the market. It's, whatever. And like, you can negotiate in a way that's civil, and it's just so much more productive. And you don't have to go take your heartburn medicine, for breakfast, So I've gotten a lot better at that part. So, hey, let's get into a little bit of news. So, just so we can get to know you a little bit better, Ben, Tavis, he's in St. Lucia. He's actually traveling back today. He may not be in St. Lucia right now, but he's there celebrating his 22nd anniversary with Tabitha. They always do great about traveling, and they've been sending some really cool pictures. And so we miss him. We have not actually done a Friday episode without him. We've both fended for ourselves a few times on interviews for different reasons, but we haven't done the Friday. But I just knew he'd be pushing it to come back in. But the realist, you are a heavyweight in different. You're going for the $1 million agent heavyweight title, but Tavis, he does both. He's a heavyweight real estate guy in his knowledge. He's also a big guy. I'm a big guy, and we like to eat. So if Ben Baker is going out, or you're going out with your wife, what is your go-to restaurant up here in Plano, Frisco, North Dallas? What do y'all enjoy?
It's funny. I'm a steak eater, and it's interesting because we don't have steak at my house. Never, right? We've never had steak, and so when I'm going out, and it's, for me, it's not over the top places. It's probably Eddie V's, it's Chamberlain's, it's Table 13, right? It's Crown Point, it's places like that. that there's a bit of experience in there too.
Yeah.
I was raised that if you're going to a nice restaurant, right, and you're going to spend upwards of $100 plus on a meal, that you also dress up. And I don't mean necessarily jacket and tie, but I'm not walking in khaki shorts and flip flops, which blows my mind because we were in Austin a few weeks ago for Mega Camp, and I think that Austin scene, which is influenced by so many folks out west, they're so casual. You walk into a high-end restaurant and guys are like they walked off the golf course.
Right.
That blows me away.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're not mad at the place that has a little bit of a dress code, it's like,
not at all. Not at all. I expect it. Right. And I think it's the expectation and it's the service that you deliver. And I can tell you, I just finished a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And
I've heard of that book. Who wrote that?
You know what? I'll never remember his name.
We'll send it to me and I'll link it because I've heard this recently and I heard it's a really good book.
It really is. And I think what makes it good is if you're in this industry, it was Will Guidara. Yes, wrote the book. And I think it highlights going over and over the top on the customer experience. And that's never a bad thing. And I think that's something that I know I strive to do, regardless of whether I've got clients that are buying a $200,000 home or, a $3 million home. I want the experience to be so positive that they don't hesitate to refer me to their friends and family and coworkers. Right. So it's delivering that Ritz-Carlton experience and even plussing it. So,
well, sometimes it's nice to experience it, go experience a nice restaurant, hotel, so you kind of know what that looks like and you can sort of critique that. For me on restaurants, I always have a hard time spending a ton of money because I actually can cook a little bit. And so I'll go somewhere and I'll eat it. I'm like, man, this just wasn't, I could, now that's why I like Haywire. And that's why I like their pork chop because they have this crazy thick double pork chop, and they sous vide it. So they cook it under, in water in a bag for several hours. They bring it to temperature and then they sear it. And it is so tender, just fall apart in your mouth tender. So Haywire, that's why I like that. Now,
I like Haywire too. I like that joint.
Yeah. So I didn't see any of this article, but I think the name is Nori, but the CEO of Smoothie King this last week came out. It was in the news maybe 2 weeks ago. So Michelin, the Michelin restaurant, the tire company Michelin, in the news, I sent you one. Continental Tires is opening up an $87 million warehouse over in Fort Worth. So that's some of the news. But Michelin, they randomly, a long time ago, they started putting together this restaurant guide, the Michelin guide. And so it's been in New York and Chicago and LA and all over. It's never been in Texas. They've never issued a Michelin guide for Texas. Well, they just in the last month said, we're going to start issuing a Michelin guide for Texas. So Texas restaurants can actually gain a Michelin star. We've had chefs who have Michelin stars. We've had chefs that have worked in Michelin restaurants, blah, blah, blah. But no one has ever had a Michelin star in Texas. But that's going to change. Well, the CEO of Smoothie King, he developed a restaurant and it made news. It's a steakhouse. It's an Asian-inspired steakhouse. And I want to say the name is Nori. I'm not sure. But it made news because it is the most expensive, they think, the most expensive build out for a restaurant in Dallas. And the build out, I don't think this probably counts buying the building, although it might, $20 million. So you want to experience a nice place, go sit down and be in a $20 million restaurant before they even bring out the food. I have a feeling that steak.
Interesting. I have this already pulled up.
There you go. Yeah. That looks beautiful, right?
Yeah. And what's crazy is, so I do a couple of things. So I host Millionaire Mondays, right? And now we showcase not just here locally, but $1 million plus homes all over the world. And I did that for my luxury brand on Wednesdays. And I did this because here it is. I'm from this area, right? But we're asked all the time. You just asked me, right? Where do we like to go for, a nice night out? And sometimes I struggle with that, but there are 3 or 4 places we like. I wanted to make sure that if you were new to this area or if you're here local, that I would help educate you on some nice experiences. Sometimes it's a park, it's a bar, it's great restaurants. And I've heard about that place upwards of a year or 2 ago. And I saw a piece. And so I will be hosting it on my Welcome Wednesdays.
Yep.
And they you talked about the build out. I was just referring to it being the most expensive, I think, steak restaurant that I've heard of. And one of my buddies was telling me, I think it's the Tomahawk or something there, which has this crazy price. And I don't even know what it is. And if you're used to paying, 130, 150, 200 for a Tomahawk, there, I think it's 3 or 4 times that number.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So I'm curious. I will experience it because I'm the guy who I really don't have a problem spending the money on that experience.
Yeah.
And Tavis is headed in today. I'm leaving out on Saturday morning, headed to an annual guys trip in Vegas.
Oh, nice.
There, I've had the most expensive meals I've ever had. If you think there were 5 of us and we went to Joel Robichon's, and we went there 6 months before he passed away.
Oh, okay.
And it's a French-inspired restaurant.
Yep.
And I don't even drink. And I think there might have been 2 bottles of wine. And yet that meal with the tip was over $5,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I mean, I appreciate it, but
Yes.
hey, I like a nice meal every once in a while, but it is hard for me to enjoy it because I'm just nervous, And so, hey, I'm simple. Haywire is the top for me right now.
Well,
otherwise, take me over to Chili's, give me a nice appetizer, go to Chewy's and get some, chips and salsa. So yeah, no, I'm glad that world exists, but
yes, I'm telling you, you and I should go, and somehow we should, I should at least attempt to let them know, hey, we're doing a piece, right? We'd love just to step in, maybe just have, a small course or something, see if they provide it so that we can push content and go, recommend this place, right, to your audience, my audience. I'd love that because I want to take the place out.
I have a feeling that's going to show up every year. Nick and Sam shows up, but that's where the Cowboys rookie dinner is, and they take all the rookies out to dinner and they run up a bill and then they hand it to the rookies to pay. Yes. I think that's Nick and Sam's every year. So maybe this will supplant that as the go-to restaurant. So let's get to a few more of our news items here. Let's see. I know we did talk about the DFW airport. It's not necessarily real estate, but it's so important to this area as far as selling it to people. One of the main reasons but one of the big reasons, when we lived in small town Louisiana, you had to connect every time you left. If you ever wanted to travel, you had to leave extra early because you had to connect in Houston or Dallas or Atlanta or whatever. And it just really took away from the experience. So part of the great things about living here is that you have access to the world. And DFW, we talk about, up in Frisco, the Frisco 121 and Tollway, that's a $5 billion mile. They're doing the, Shops of Legacy and all that stuff. Well, DFW announced a $9 billion improvement plan that's going to expand some of the terminals, make way for 15 or 17 new gates. And what's crazy about that, I kind of made this weird dive into Southwest Airlines, and I knew that there were some laws in place that sort of made them only fly to certain towns for a while and only be at small airports, and so they're at Love Field. But what the talk is, maybe the official, unofficial talk is that these 15 to 17 new gates out of DFW might make way for Southwest Airlines to have a presence out there, which would be a huge deal, and it would probably expand their services. So I don't know if are you the type of guy that gets to the airport a little bit early and likes to eat at a decent restaurant around there? Are you skating in 5 minutes before the gate closes? No. And I'm 2 hours early guy. I'll go sit down somewhere, enjoy a drink, and get on the Wi-Fi. I just don't want to stress about it. My wife, she acts like it's a private jet, so she can just pull up on the tarmac and they'll just let her on. So I'm not that.
It all changed for me because of 9/11. Because prior to that, Ashton, I would get to the airport. I was pulling through the the stalls there, right? Pulling into DFW. I would pull into those stalls 15 minutes before my flight, 15 minutes, and park my car, which back in the day, it wasn't that big a deal. Today, you have to get there early just to park, right?
Yep.
And twice I've pulled up to the gate running like OJ, right, back in the day. And as soon as I got to the gate, the flight attendant would go, "Are you Mr. Baker?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "Come on." I get on the plane and close the door behind me, right? And then I'd walk on and everybody was clapping like, hey, you're finally here, right? I was that guy.
Yeah.
Today, I'm a little bit better. My wife is like you. She wants to make sure she's there at least 2 hours early. My best friend, who, again, will be traveling on Saturday, he's that way. So we'll get there about 2 hours early. We'll get a big breakfast because we fly out at like 7 o'clock in the morning, right? So things have changed. I love seeing that article because it just shows that consumer confidence here in the region just remains strong, right? And that's positive for us here. Dallas, Fort Worth, and Texas in general. I mean, we lead the nation in every major category. And I was surprised to see, even on the commercial side, most of my friends talk about, man, commercial real estate right now, it's tough, right? And yet Dallas Fort Worth is the number one market in the entire United States. And that ties in to me to DFW. Because we're such a central hub, you can go anywhere within 2 or 3 hours, right? We're here in the middle, which again, I love. And I think it'll be a positive thing if Southwest comes into DFW. We're flying Southwest at Love Field on Saturday. But more importantly, I think that when you see that type of, that 9 billion, right, that's projected, that's jobs, right? That's infrastructure, right? On top of that, you've got 4 or 5 major players that have stepped up their game even more. Not sure if you're aware, but Exxon, they're stepping up their presence here locally even more. You've got Schwab. What is that?
Charles Schwab. Yep, up there at Legacy.
Thankful, right? There was Texas Instrument. I mean, they're growing like leaps and bounds. And I wish.
Well, there's this other one here that I sent you over in Plano, over that EDS building. Tavis and I have talked about. I know you're talking about that. I know you go by that one all the time.
Absolutely.
But that the renderings of that building, and they say it's going to be multi-billion-dollar. The renderings of that building look like it's a spaceship about to take off. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that's a beautiful area already. I enjoy what they've done just off of Legacy there, going a little bit east on Legacy, right past the tollway. But that EDS building is just kind of sat there, and it's awkwardly large. And I always joked that it kind of looked like it was the UN. I mean, all these gates and there's flags all the way down. It was kind of interesting, but they're doing this huge deal. So talk about even more jobs, more high-paying in-point jobs. They're right there in the heart of Plano. So if you're a luxury guy and Plano is your thing, and North Dallas and Richardson, I mean, the idea that that's going to be your center point for people that are going to be working there with high-paying jobs and they're going to be looking to live nearby, it cannot be a bad thing. And so, putting your stake down there and being the guy, there's nothing wrong with that. Last story is speaking of high end, they are putting in some. They didn't say a range, but high end apartments right next to the Ranger Stadium out there, Globe Life Park. What is it? Something Texas Live. That whole area. They got a hotel now. For a long time, it was just the Cowboys Stadium, and there was the Rangers, and it was the Six Flags, and it was these awkward bars that you could go to after a game, and huge parking lots and sketchy warehouses and stuff. And now they're really developing all that, and they're bringing in some high-end apartments. So people they're really going after the young professional. Still center, over there in Irving, Arlington area. The center part of the DFW area, you can get to a lot of different jobs. Downtown's not too far away, but you can stay there. You can walk over to a Rangers game. You can walk to, the Cowboys game if you want to. Tons of bars and all sorts of stuff. So that's interesting. Now, when you say you said you had a listing in a high-rise condo, what is that in Plano? Is that over there, the Legacy area?
That's the Athena complex. I think it's probably the original. It's old. I think that thing was built in 1969.
Okay.
Right off Northwest Highway in Douglas area.
Okay.
And they're reasonable. The problem there is the HOA dues. It's $1,400 a month. And again, that rivals many people's mortgage payment period.
Right.
That's the HOA dues, right?
Yeah.
So there's the problem. Now, again, there are some amenities that come with it.
Yeah.
But for me, not $1,400 worth.
Heck no. Not to mention assessments, condo assessments that come in with, and they just hit you with that. It's like, we voted, and by the way, everyone's in for $3,000 this year. It's like, what?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's blown up some deals. I've lamented the difficulty of representing a buyer on the condo side because it's complicated,
Yeah.
and you've got, especially if they're financing, there's financing regulations for how well funded the HOA has to be.
Right.
And so you see these, oh man, that's a good price. Well, tack on HOAs, tack on the fact that it doesn't qualify for, traditional
That's right.
financing.
That's right.
It can be an issue. So,
That's
if it's me, I'm probably not going condo, maybe person. Now, I would love to go tour. If you ever get a listing over there at the ones,
one ours.
yeah, over there at the Cowboy Stadium, right over there by not Cowboy Stadium, but the Star, over
Yes.
just
Oh, yeah,
north there on the tollway. Some of
absolutely.
those are beautiful. So
Oh, yeah.
if you ever get something over there and you need an open house guy, you just call me. I'll be there.
Gotcha.
I will be there.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that circles back to what they're doing in Arlington. Right now, you're finding they're doing it in every major city. I think Allen has a little complex that's like the like Legacy West, right?
Mm.
Uh, and I don't remember. I know it's near 121. Capel has the exact same thing going on that most folks aren't aware
Oh
of.
yeah.
And what they're doing,
Irving there, the Toyota Convention
absolutely,
Center, all that stuff. Grapevine's done a really good job of growth. I don't know much about Fort Worth, but I've read a lot about how the stockyards, they're putting a ton of money into the stockyards. They've got a lot of legacy family money, Hunt, those,
yes,
the beautiful museums over there. And so I need to, Tavis and I have talked about spending some time down there, not to mention downtown. And they're putting in, I think, $3 billion into K. Bailey Hutchinson.
yes,
Speaking of, little plug, if you and we'll end with a little bit with this, I'm going to put out a calendar. There's so many things happening right now. There's some Oktoberfest celebrations coming up. There's Grape Fest and Grapevine. And the next couple weekends, there's several really cool things around town. But one of my family traditions is going to the Mecum Auto Auction. My dad was a big car guy. My first car was a 64 Nova. I had a 70 Chevelle. My brothers had several classic cars. And so my dad, he would come to town and we would go to the Mecum auction there at K. Bailey. He passed away about 5 years ago, and we've tried to go a few times. Last couple of years, we haven't been able to go. But my son's coming in from Texas Tech this coming weekend, and we're going to get to go down and walk around Mecum. Wally Barazza, who was on the podcast, we're going to see him. He's got a Cadillac. I want to see like a mid-40s Cadillac. Tavis has got a 41 Chevy. I have my eyes set. My new goal, if I have a dream wall or whatever you call it, if I have a dream wall, I have updated it with a 1964 Malibu SS with the LS, the Corvette engine in there. So I have a very specific vision of that car.
that is.
And I can see it in my garage. And so that. I actually went and looked at one the other day. I was like, this is it. This is a rust bucket, but I want the good version of that one,
Well,
So, Mecum Auto Auctions this weekend.
yeah.
So
My dad has a 70 Monte Carlo, which was my first car. And what I remember was that it had 400 plus under the hood. I'm not a car guy.
Yeah.
And that was my car. And basically I just drove it locally. And all I remembered is if I punched it, all of a sudden when it kicked in, it'd throw your head back a second, right?
Yeah.
And it would get up and go, man. So
that's a lot of car for a young guy,
It was.
My first car was a straight 6, and you would have a hard time getting it to 70 on the highway. I mean, Novas are drag racing cars, and everyone would think it was a fast car. It had the smallest engine you could possibly put in there. So it was a great car. And then I ended up getting rid of it like an idiot, and I've always regretted it. But yeah, it was a 64. So the 64 Malibu SS is like a perfect sort of upgraded adult version of that car. So yes, that is my new goal. So, well, Ben, man, it has been so awesome. I appreciate you being on with me.
Time goes so quickly.
I know. Yeah, we've been going almost an hour. So anytime, Tavis is out, or if I'm out, I know Tavis would love for you. You're there at the office. You got a lot of stuff going on. You got a ton of knowledge as a realtor. I enjoy watching all your stuff you put out on social. You do the calls with you're such a good help to the other agents around the office, because you're just so willing to share, the things that you've learned. And so, like I said earlier,
if you'll allow me in seconds. I mean, you talked about the car thing. I mean, that was such an amazing memory that you shared with your dad, and that legacy continues. I think that we have to get out today. I mean, that's part of my Welcome Wednesdays. And we know that, I mean, in Plano, they've got the Balloon Fest coming up.
Balloon Fest. Yeah. I'm glad you said that. I saw that too.
Oktoberfest. The fair is 3 weeks away, right? We've got Fright Fest coming up at Six Flags. All that to say is, you know what? We need to get out.
Yep.
Sometimes let's get outside of our four walls with friends and family, and let's create those memories, because that's what's important. And
Yep.
and again, right now, life is short. Life is short. That's all I'm going to say. So
Yep.
again, I always appreciate this. Enjoy, you guys having me and just chopping it up, right? Talking about what we see, what's going on in the marketplace, and maybe what we expect. I do expect, on a real estate note, that this fall is going to be a tad bit healthier than normal, because our spring was a bit underwhelming. Right now, the interest rates are falling in the right direction. Political stuff aside, for me, I don't concern myself with that. I'm in the business of serving, buyers and sellers, right? And we are seeing things trend up slightly, which I believe that we're going to move into 2025 on a real positive note. And nationally, we're expecting to sell in the neighborhood of anywhere from 200 on the low to a 500,000 on the high. Some are expecting about 4.5, 4.8 million sales next year, and that's going to be up from this year. And in 2026, mark my words, we're going to be looking at appreciation gains, not historically between 3 to 5 where we've been. I expect we're going to be somewhere between 7 to 11%. And that's what I'm telling consumers right now, that if you don't get off the fence in the next 2 years, you're going to miss out on double-digit appreciation. We're talking about the average home here just near our office at a 500,000.
Yep.
Add 50,000 to that loss in the next 2 years if you don't do something.
Yeah, because you're worried about a 0.25% interest or
right?
What's it going to do. Yeah, I know. You got to just get out there and play the game a little bit. So, well, tell people how the best way to get in touch with you or to see I know you're on Instagram, Facebook. So let everybody know about that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. YouTube and Instagram, it's the same. It's Ben Baker _dealmaker. Facebook, it's Ben Baker Realtor. My phone number is 214-801-8800. And I appreciate the connection and the likes and the comments, because again, it keeps me on my toes. And if there's an opportunity anywhere, and locally or even nationally, to really learn and pour into my business, let me know, because I love getting on a plane, especially under the throes of business, right?
Yep.
I'll do an extra day on top of that to learn something and enjoy. But yeah, just don't hesitate to reach out. I love it.
Yeah, Ben's great. He's when Tavis is out, he's become my. I text him, hey, what did they say about this form? What's the 2406? What is, all that stuff. They've gotten a little confused, but I know Ben, if anyone was on the call and heard the details, it was Ben. So if you're an agent, if you're an investor and you just have some questions, he's just a wealth of knowledge. You can't replace 30 years of knowledge and grinding days in and days out in the game for that long. You just can't replace it. So if you haven't yet, try to find us on YouTube, Real Estate Heavyweights. Find us on Instagram. Of course, I'm Ashton Hines. I'm the Dallas Real Estate Guy. Tavis Westbrook. Yeah, Tavis Westbrook Designs. A lot of you guys know that, but if you haven't yet, find one of those links, share it with a friend, tell your friends about this podcast, Spotify, Apple, and try to subscribe, and we'll try to grow our audience. And until next time, have a great day.
Thanks, guys.